This is an image of a black hole from the movie Interstellar. The movie came out in 2014, 5 years before we would capture a real image of a black hole. And this is what that looks like. And although there is some artistic freedom that lent to the beauty of the black hole from Interstellar, if you place them side by side, you can draw some parallels between their appearances. And this is because there was some true science that went into the making of the black hole model from Interstellar. And not to mention the scientists like Kip Thorne, who served as an advisor to the movie, giving it a fundamental scientific core to work around. But why do these things matter, you might wonder? Why would such things make Interstellar the best movie experience that I ever had? Well, to answer this, I need to explain what a movie experience means. Perhaps there isn't much to explain here. It is plain and clear that a movie experience is the way you experience a movie. And in my opinion, it is oftentimes personalized, and it deals with the subjective way you feel about a movie. Well, maybe that was a bit obscure, so let me explain it a bit better. A movie is a story, whereas a movie experience is an all-encompassing bag of emotions felt during the movie. A movie experience contains the way you felt about a certain scene, and the wave of emotions that a soundtrack carried. And by watching such a movie, you haven't just watched the movie, you have experienced it. And this is where Interstellar holds supreme beyond anything that I have ever watched. And since the movie experience, as I mentioned before, is often personal, maybe there is a bit of bias that I have here, since I watched Interstellar at the movie theater. And perhaps had I watched movies like Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter at the movies that I value ever so much, things might have been a bit different. But even that being said, I have watched plenty of huge blockbusters on the big screen, but none of them have captured me as deeply as Interstellar. You see, right from the get-go, I remember watching the trailer for the movie all those years ago and hoping that it would premiere in one of the movie theaters in my town. And in case you're wondering, I'm not from a big town. And in the year 2014, there weren't many English movies premiering on a weekly basis around here. So finally, when the movie was released, just as I suspected, it wasn't premiering in any of the theaters near my town. So my friend and I got on a train and went to the nearest city to watch the movie. It's about 70 kilometers if anyone wants to know. Don't really know how that's important. But anyway, we bought our tickets, we got inside, sat quite centrally in the cinema hall, and slowly the movie began. And I remember getting goosebumps a couple of times when the music hit me. And I remember asking a bunch of questions to my friend in between. But by the time the movie had ended, I remember being captivated and filled with questions and emotions and being overwhelmed by this strange sense of wonder that sort of inspires me to this day when I watch this movie. Almost to the point where if I watch this movie, I know that right after, I can get things done. And I know that this might sound like some mumbo-jumbo word vomit that makes no sense. And to be honest, sometimes when I watch this movie, it makes me question why I feel a certain type of way. But it does. But for me, all these things make Interstellar much bigger than just a story. In my head, to this day, it feels like a lived experience, although it makes zero sense. You see, a movie experience is enhanced by the idea or the concept that it tackles, and therefore, watching non-fiction doesn't quite cut it for me. Speaking purely from an experience point of view, that is. The concept oftentimes, but not necessarily, needs to have an element of fiction in it. It needs to be all-encompassing, with vivid scenes and the sound design to back it up. And this is where Christopher Nolan comes in. He is what you would call, for the lack of a better word, a visionary. He's someone who loves to push the boundaries of fiction, which is something you would expect from a person who draws inspiration from movies like 2001: A Space Odyssey and Blade Runner. Movies that are far better experienced than simply watched. His movies deal with concepts that are submerged fully in the realm of imagination and are subject to a surreal experience, whether you watch it at the movies or at home. But I think this is where Interstellar is a bit different. It deals with a concept that is literally out of this world. And although Christopher Nolan is a huge advocate for watching all of his movies at the movie theater, I think Interstellar specifically has to be watched at the movies to fully capture your imagination. And if it doesn't capture your imagination, and I'm sorry for being quite blunt, but you simply haven't experienced Interstellar. Nolan's movies are imaginative. It meddles with dreams and realities and magic and emotions, and as it worked its way to Interstellar, it ripped through the fabric of space and time to bring us closer to the ethereal, an idea of what space is like. And although there are plenty of movies that have done this, I think Nolan convinced me the most on how to experience space. Gargantua in the movie is not just a supermassive black hole, but it is almost like a final boss in a game. And as silly as it sounds, it is when Cooper falls into the black hole when we are taken on this journey to connect the future to the past. And it is when Cooper speaks these words that you experience that visceral feeling of what it is to be human. This is arguably one of the rare scenes that gets me teary-eyed every single time, because this is what hope and inspiration looks like. And if you strip away all our biases and prejudice, this is what humanity looks like. The allure of space is magnificent, but it is also a conundrum, because how do you even convey the magnificence of space through a story? None bar a few people have had the opportunity to venture into space, but that too not any further than the moon. So how do you tell a story about interstellar space without zero relatability? And this is where the philosophical side of Nolan comes in. Nolan's movies are fantastically philosophical, be it Inception or The Prestige, or even a superhero movie like The Dark Knight. How do you turn a villain into a beacon of philosophy? Well, somehow Nolan managed it. The Joker is much more than a villain. He's a concept in and of itself. Nolan treats fiction as if they are real. He mixes his unreal concepts with philosophical implications to connect the viewers to his characters. And that's the reason why the Joker leaves you thinking. And the same reason why you think about the morality of The Prestige and whether or not the spinning top falls or not. Interstellar is no different. Once you peel the layers in Interstellar one by one, you slowly realize that the movie is about humanity, and for the story to send that message from strange-looking worlds, you need a philosophy, one that's truly universal: love. In the movie specifically, the bond between a father and his daughter. It is this connection that elevates the story into an experience filled with emotions and jeopardy. Without this premise, the movie remains just a story about adventure. And without this philosophy, the story never becomes quite an experience. The way Interstellar invokes space to convey such a message is truly remarkable. It isn't easy to convey the weight of such a concept in a mesmerizingly elegant way. Weighing the story and the concept is a balancing act from the start to the finish, and not many movies can pull this off. But it still has one more thing up its sleeves that make it a spectacle, and if you haven't guessed it yet, I'll show you. I know that a lot of you who clicked on this video must have at least thought that I was gonna mention the soundtracks of Interstellar. And don't you worry, I haven't forgotten about Hans Zimmer and his incredible talent to make us experience fiction through music. And oh, what Interstellar would be without its sound design. I think it was George Lucas who said that the sound and music are 50% of the entertainment in a movie. And this is remarkably true for a lot of movies, especially fiction, for music and sounds bridge the gap between fiction and reality. And this is evident to its fullest form in Interstellar, where the music guides our emotions through the mysteries of space. Sound design is always deliberate as it becomes a part of the movie experience. I believe that background score should be able to tell a story in and of itself. You can't simply chuck a song into the midst of a movie and expect people to grasp its importance. And again, this is where Hans Zimmer comes in. And as I mentioned how Christopher Nolan brings unusual concepts to life through his vision, Hans Zimmer does the exact same to these movies through his music. And Interstellar is perhaps the pinnacle of his luminous career. The music in Interstellar is as deliberate as it can get. It starts off calmly with perhaps the most elegant soundtrack of the lot, playing in the background of a conversation between a father and his daughter. The soundtrack that comes after it during the cornfield chase sets the tone for the whole movie. This is a movie about adventure. The next soundtrack introduces the mystery element of the movie, i.e. the ghost, i.e. gravity. The soundtrack that comes after connects the dots and prepares us for what's to come. And what follows is the central theme of the movie, and arguably the soundtrack that holds the core message of the movie. the love between a father and his daughter. This is the soundtrack that pulls you into the movie the most, the one that makes your eyes water, the one that symbolizes what love truly is. The next soundtrack is much calmer, as it gives you a moment to take in the beauty of space, but the theme that follows it shows us exactly why space is equally terrifying, a perfect dichotomy that you will see throughout the movie. Now the soundtrack takes a different approach. This is where the music and the story become one, as it dictates how to feel. And although the whole movie is a race against time, in this specific scene from Miller's Planet, we are introduced to what is referred to as the ticking clock. In other words, an element used in movies to define a time constraint. Now the music is what defines the pace, and everything from here forward to the end of their mission on this planet, there is an element of time to be worried about. This was a deliberate choice to explain things like time dilation, to name a few, and that whatever you do here has big consequences. As I'm not really a music guy, I highly recommend watching this video titled "What Makes Interstellar's Music So Terrifying" to get a much better understanding of the ticking clock element. The next few soundtracks slowly introduce us to the plot twist that humans were not meant to save the Earth, but they were meant to leave it. And now that the jeopardy is at its peak, and hence the menace of the soundtracks as well. And the soundtracks an alternate between hopeful and menacing to show the nature of the plot. It isn't one smooth line from the start to the finish. And finally, the element of time gets thrown into the mix once again, and the soundtracks that follow reminds us that time is of the essence and there is no time for caution. This soundtrack was crafted to keep the audience on the edge of their seats as immersion turns into reality, as it pulls you further into the movie experience. Now the soundtracks become visceral again, as it plays beautifully in the background to represent the unwavering qualities of humankind. The movie is now at its most important act, and during these moments of absolute confusion and chaos, slowly rises the main theme of the movie. But this time the soundtrack stays to send the message, stay. And we go back full circle to the beginning as we understand what this movie is all about. And here the music takes full control of your emotions, and it takes you on a journey connecting the past, the future, and the present. And as the resolution of the movie approaches, we hear the purest and the most audible and the most beautiful version of the main theme. This is a representation of hope. And to this day, when I watch this scene accompanied by this soundtrack, it gives me chills. So you can imagine how I must have felt when I watched it at the movie theater. And this is how you move people through music. This is how you make people experience something beyond this world. Interstellar is a spectacle, and I was fortunate enough to have experienced it at the movies. And to push that point further home, all you have to do is to scroll down every Interstellar clip that you can find on YouTube. You'll see words of regret floating around the comment section of pretty much all of these videos on Interstellar, wishing they had watched it at the movies, wishing they had experienced Interstellar on a bigger screen. And this tells you all you want to know about how close Interstellar is to people's hearts. To this day, I haven't experienced anything like this. And sometimes I wonder, even looking forward, if I ever will.